love it when I turn up the bass.
I thought you had a shower cap on for a second, bro.
Wow, really?
I thought you had an old school do-rag. I was about to say, bro, what are you going through, bro?
You really thought I had a tan shower cap on?
Yeah, bro. You got that old school penitentiary stocking from that you used to get like from your mama knee high and bust. Oh, see, I'm hood. Sorry, you get that.
No, I did the same thing, but it was in black.
Yeah, you put that little knot and put it on there. Wake up sweating.
Yeah, I done did that, way before I lost all my hair. All right, man. Let's go ahead and get this joint started, man. Welcome everybody to Secondary Sessions. As you come in, please make sure that you hit that like button. Also, please make sure, golly, I hit the joint and it didn't come up. There we go. Smash that like button. And also, please make sure that you subscribe to the network. Let me go ahead and introduce the panel. We have Quan.
Good afternoon, everybody.
There we go. And this is my family down here, but she got Mrs. Brown, so we're gonna address her as Mrs. Brown today.
Hello, everybody.
How you doing?
All right, so just getting started, I want to start off by saying that the topics for today's shows was actually inspired by Mrs. Brown. Dang, it's so weird because I don't never call you that, but I'm gonna have to do that today. I'm gonna be respectful. But it was inspired by her, and so when I told her that on yesterday, she said, "Let me come on." So we're gonna bring her on, and we're gonna have this conversation, and this conversation is very serious. And we're dealing with mental health, but we're dealing with mental health and education. And the greatest thing about this is, and you all know, as far as secondary sessions is concerned, it's all about the educators and secondary educators and what's happening inside of secondary education. So this is 100% going to be geared towards that. All right, we ready to get this thing kicked and started off? Quan, you good?
Yeah, bro. I'm being multiplicative, trying to look at the march at the same time.
Man, I got it on the screen over here. So if you see me looking over there,
it ain't loading.
Yeah. So, but we gonna be focused on both. You gotta be able to still give them deep comments that you always like to give, brother. All right. So let's go ahead and kick this thing off. I'm gonna go ahead and get with the first topic. The first topic, very simple. We're gonna keep it simple. Have we considered educators' mental health? Have we considered educators' mental health? Quan, I'm gonna start with you, brother.
I don't think so. No. In my honest opinion, as a high school band director, I mean, we should honestly get hazardous pay at this point, personally, just like the first responders, in my opinion. When you think about it, and some of the policies, and like I say, no specific district, but I know if you contract COVID, teachers, you use your days. And as you know, and I know, and I can't speak for other states, but in the state of Texas, you only get 10 days. So literally how they basically marked it out was you kind of have like 3 to 4 days quarantine. They put it where those days of quarantine fall into your weekend. And then you basically come back to school the next following day. And for a person like myself, many, they don't know, but I lost my aunt due to COVID when the pandemic first took place. Literally, she went into the hospital, I believe it was a Thursday, and, she transitioned to glory on Sunday. That's how fast it was. So, I mean, when you think about those things, when you think about just that aspect of policy, is very insensitive. And a lot of the time, the truth is, the people that are creating these policies, they're home having these Zoom meetings with their administration in the safety of their home. When, now, honestly, districts want us to go back to traditional teaching. I know certain educators, their classes are now even overcrowded. So, I mean, when you think about mental health, literally, it's a ticking time bomb, and it's only by the grace of God that many of us have not either contracted COVID, or if you have contracted COVID, have not passed from COVID. So just going to work every day just to do something that you love, and specifically from the band director's perspective, think about it. We deal with spit. We deal with, what if your band room is not ventilated properly? What if, it's just so much, bro. So the list goes on and on. But overall, is our mental health considered? No. Even before COVID, think about how much the insurance was to even see a therapist. That's a whole different conversation. But overall, no, we're not considered.
Okay. Mrs. Brown. That's so weird. I got to get used to it. Have we considered educators' mental health?
I'm gonna have to say no. Being a school counselor, I can say that there has not been a day where someone has just come by and just say, "Hey, how are you? Um, how can I help you? How is your mental health?" Because I'm not only there for the students, I'm there for the administrator, the parents, the kids, and whatever else is going on inside the school. They need to understand people who are in the mental health field also need mental health help as well. So I'm just gonna have to say no.
I didn't. So this is news to me. So you deal with like administrators' mental health as well.
So let's just say that they're having a situation with a parent or may it be a teacher, and I'm going in there and having a conversation with them, and I'm walking them through the process of what they should do and should not do and how they handle it, or if they're upset. Yeah, I'm dealing with their mental health. That's a
Wow.
part of mental health.
Wow. Okay, so this is a question that I just thought about as you guys were just kind of giving your thoughts. As far as resources, has education provided enough resources for us to even receive, um, mental health treatment or help in that aspect for our mental health, as it pertains to just education and what we deal with on a daily basis?
So I'm sorry, Quan. I didn't know if you were about to. So I feel like there is enough resources out there. However, some educators do not feel comfortable with going to use their resources because it's tied to the school. They want resources that's outside of the school because they feel like, oh, I'm using the school resources, so they're able to share with my workspace what's going on with me. Some people don't feel comfortable enough to do that. So I feel like that plays a part of not getting your mental health taken care of because some people don't feel comfortable enough. And like if you look inside your policy book, school counselors are not just meant for the students. We are supposed to be there for everyone that's within the building. So if someone comes in and wants to talk with me, they might not feel comfortable talking with me because they know that I have conversations with the principals or the vice principals. So that's another resource that they're not using because they don't feel comfortable.
So for me, I think I totally agree. There was a colleague of mine that literally had a breakdown, like just breakdown. And what ended up happening was uh he literally was about to like check himself in, but he was told by another coworker, and I don't know if this information is accurate or not, but he was like, "Hey, if you check yourself in, they may say that you're unfit to teach." And so he literally walked through that process by himself. Then he eventually, I encouraged him to, get help. But what if that scenario would have turned to where him harming himself? Then what? And not being ugly, I think we're better now. But black folks, like, we still got that stigma of, I'm not gonna go to the therapy because you crazy. I'm gonna just talk to God about it. But therapy is, needed. I'm not ashamed to say I had my very first anxiety attack, this year, just with the
Mhm.
pressures of building the band, and as an educators, we want the best for our children. And sometimes when they're going through their things at home personally, as teachers, we take all of that on, and we sometimes don't know how to decompress. Specifically, men, we don't know how to deal with that. It's a different whole subject too. But like, we take the weight of these children with us every day, including the personal issues we have at home, including the things that we deal with ourselves, the childhood trauma. You wrap all of that up.
Mhm.
We need safe spaces, so to speak, so that we can be vulnerable to talk about the things that we deal with.
Quan, it's crazy that you mentioned that. I just had a conversation with a coworker the other day, male coworker, and I told him, I said, we go home and we try to get a good night's rest, but your mind is not at ease. While you're sleeping, you're really not getting rest because your mind is steady going. And you're thinking about those students and whatever else you have going on in your life. So you wake up and you're tired because your body's not at rest. And we have to learn as educators to kind of separate home life from school life and school life from home life so that we are getting that rest that our mind needs. Something that I do, you have to find something outside of work that gives you pleasure so that you are meeting that, how can I put it? Not need, but like you're separating the two. You're able to separate things that you're dealing with in school or, at home. It has nothing to do with those two, and you're doing it outside so that your mind, you can kind of flush out the things that you've been thinking about all day long, but you're doing something that you love. And with you guys, being music teachers, that's kind of hard because you love music, but it's still tied to work. So you got to find something outside of music that helps you with your mental health.
That to me, and I don't mind being transparent. That for me has been difficult for quite a number of years. A lot of people don't know this about me, but well, except for my wife. But I've been suffering from anxiety since my last year in college, and so I've learned how to, I guess you want to say, cope with it. Uh, but I know there are a lot of people who, like Quan just said, he had his first anxiety attack. For me, it's almost really normal for me. I know I have at least one every day. And so I don't know. I find it really interesting especially in this year of COVID, or these years of COVID. I can't say the year of COVID, but I find it very interesting the number of mental health issues that has risen in educators. And I'm always curious as to um, what help is being issued. So that's why I asked that question, like what help is really being issued to a lot of these educators. And you're absolutely right when you say that a lot of people don't want to tie it to their job because they may be afraid that conversation might come up, that information might be given out, and then they lose their jobs. You know what I'm saying? And then their money has changed. So I think it's a lot. I really think it's a lot on the part of just human beings alone and educators specifically. So yeah. Um, any more thoughts about that?
I'll just say this for me, to all of the parents who are watching, and maybe even some students. Please remember that teachers are humans too, and the truth is, a lot of the times we have to be everyone's Superman when we also have kryptonite as well. And there's moments that we merely want to be Clark Kent or Lois Lane. Like so be mindful. Our children's cut up too. We have anxiety. When it comes, Julian, you say something and I think the competitive edge of being a band director, like we're constantly thinking. And then something that I've discovered, when self-sabotage is something real, those things are real. And when sometimes you compare yourself to where maybe even you thought where you were supposed to be, or maybe you felt like you were overlooked for a position or whatnot, all of that takes a toll. And then you question yourself and your integrity and your position and your worth and value. And I had to learn this year, that my value of who I am is not tied to accomplishments. So I encourage everybody to think about it from that perspective too.
Bet 100. All right, man. Let's keep it rolling. If you're just tuning in, welcome everybody to the secondary sessions. As soon as you come in, go ahead and smash that like button. Let's go ahead and get these likes up, man. This conversation is very important. Also, if you are tuning in, go ahead and share this information out to any educator, any teacher, any student that you know, because this conversation is 100% important with what we deal with on a daily basis, and not only just as educators but as human beings anyway. So go ahead and smash that like button, and also please make sure that you subscribe to the network. All right, let's move on to the next topic. So I was thinking about this as I was coming up with these questions and thinking about these questions. So many times obviously we deal with students on a daily basis. And there are a lot of students who've come in, I will say this COVID era, but even prior to this COVID. So let me give you an example. One day when I was at an assembly, maybe about 2-3 years ago, there was a presenter inside of the assembly, and he asked a question. He said, how many students in here? Now, mind you, this was a high school, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders. And he asked, how many of you all have actually witnessed a dead body or seen someone being killed? 90% of the students in that room, these are 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, raised their hands. And it made me realize that a lot of these kids are suffering from trauma, PTSD, and everything of alike. So my question is, do students' mental health play a role in how we as educators respond to them? Do students' mental health play a role in how we as educators respond to them? All right, Mrs. Brown, you got it.
So it's funny that you talk about this, and you talked about how students are at 90% of seeing bodies and how it plays to trauma. I just had a conversation with a teacher the other day about a young man who has seen the mother be pistol whipped by the father. And I had to explain to her she cannot go up to him and verbally, I don't want to say verbally abuse, but like talk down to him. Why is your behavior like this? I told you 5 times to stop doing this. You have to approach that student differently because he is already dealing with trauma at home, and then he's having to come to school and deal with trauma with you, but you're not seeing it as trauma because you don't know what's going on at home. And that's why it's important that school counselors and teachers communicate. But by law, I'm not able to give all information to the teacher. But if I come to you and I tell you that this student is dealing with trauma at home, and that I would like for you to come to my office to give you techniques and skills on how to handle the student, then I think it's important that you take that into consideration so that you don't have that student inside of your classroom when you approach them turning over top of the desk, throwing things in the classroom, running out of your classroom, talking back to you. It's all in how you approach a student to make sure that it's a safe space for them and also a safe space for you, because not only could that child's trauma affect the rest of the students in the classroom, it could affect you. You never know. You could get too close and he might have a flashback of something that has happened at home, and he's seen his father hit a woman. What makes you think that he won't do that to you? So, yes, we need to be mindful of how we approach our kids in the classroom.
All right, bet. Quan, you got it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be mindful of those triggers, but the way that you identify those triggers is what in education, I'm pretty sure we've heard, is called unpack the backpack.
Okay.
See what they're going through, see what they're endeavoring through on a daily basis. Some of these kids in these just overall period, it's a fly or something here. And some of these kids in urban areas, Like for example, like where I'm from, like in Louisiana, we really never heard of like Bloods and Crips when we were coming up. When I first got to Houston, I was like, "Y'all do that for real?" And it was like, "Yeah." And so around certain areas,
That
uh,
was before. Let me clarify that.
yeah.
That wasn't a major thing until the Louisiana folks showed up. All right, go ahead.
What you mean, bro?
What you mean?
What you mean?
I'm just saying, you got to remember, I grew up in the city, so I don't. When I came up, that wasn't Bloods and Crips wasn't major
That
until
may
that
not have
whole
been on your side of
thing.
the town.
Oh,
I'm
you
just
from
telling
Brazil
you,
City?
I'm
You
not
from
from the
OC,
Mo.
bro?
See, I'm not from the Mo.
Where you from? Where
See
you
that?
from?
I'm from the
Where you
Southwest
from?
side.
Yeah,
I'm from the
they had blood
Southwest.
on the Southwest side. They leave
Tight. Now where I grew up.
anyway.
Because you
All
got it.
right,
Go
Okay,
ahead. Keep going.
fine, continue.
all right. We didn't have that. You know what I'm saying? Like we had our walls or your projects, so whatever. Nevertheless, when I first got here, I was like, "Y'all serious?" And a lot of these kids, like I have a student, uh, who literally said, "Mr. Mitchell, I was born into this. I really don't want to do this." So he has to operate a certain way, or else he's going to be a victim. You know what I'm saying? So like when you see some of the behavior, like for example, now you have to be mindful how you break up fights. Meaning, if you grab one student and then the other student gets the best of them, understand now that is being recorded. So yeah, he might have gotten into it at school, but guess what? When he goes into that neighborhood and catches that bus stop, it's completely different. So you have to honestly develop relationships and be able to talk to these kids, but keep that standard like, hey, you're not going to do this, but not belittle them in the process, because a lot of them already go through it at home. I've seen parents excoriate their children like in front of you, because you know how when we come up and again it goes back to post-traumatic slave syndrome, like I always lament. You stupid, you're dumb, you be doing this, and you see the countenance of the child just fall because you're being ridiculed in front of somebody that they respect, but that's on the norm. So if they get ridiculed at home, they shouldn't come to school for 8 hours a day and have received the same thing. So it's like those are the things that we have to be mindful of. It's not that old school mentality of do as I say and not as I do, but you got to build relationships and build respect. So if you build respect, they'll love you to life. But if you trying to bully your class, because some teachers, we're gonna be honest, some teachers are bullies too. But you have to, bottom line, you have to consider the child's trauma in order to honestly build that relationship so that you can have that environment, that you want, that's conducive to learning in your class.
So let me ask you this question. Can teacher trauma and student trauma be a very bad dynamic, right? Because like teachers, as we've already said, right? Teachers as human beings deal with their own mental health and their own trauma. And then they come into the classroom and they may meet a student who is dealing with their own mental health and trauma, right? So in what ways would you guys say that can be handled in a way where it's even keel for both parties without one being reactive to the other?
So I okay, this is my practice. I can't tell anybody else to do this. As a counselor, I have my things that I deal with too as well. I'm not perfect. I make sure I tell my students that. I make sure I tell my parents that. As educators, we're always taught that we're there to help the child, right? So when I walk in that building, I have to check myself. I have to do something before I get inside of that building to make sure I show up 100%, regardless of what I may be dealing with from home or anything in life, because we're there for the students. So I tell my teachers this, I tell my parents this when they're dealing with their kids. You have to check yourself and say, hey, I'm going to leave this at the door and I'm going to pick it back up when I leave from here, because that's not healthy for that child. If you're already dealing with something and you're going inside that classroom, that's like oil and vinegar mixing together. and that's something that you do not want. I'll give you an example. If a teacher is having a bad day and a child is having a bad day, and a child does something and the teacher yells at the child, and the child yells back at the teacher, that's a yelling match. Nobody's going to win that fight. But if that teacher has checked herself at the door and said, hey, I know I'm dealing with this. What can I do before I get inside this building so that I'm showing up 100% for these kids? And she goes inside of the classroom and she does that, and she's talking in a monotone voice, and that child is yelling at her. That child is going to listen to her because she's talking to that child in a monotone voice versus how she talked to that child before. So as educators, I know it's hard, and I know a lot of people may not agree with me, but you have to check yourself at the door to be there 100% for the kids, because they're not worried about your problems at home. They're not worried about what's going on with you at home. That's why you have to use the resources for yourself to be able to be there for the kids when you show up every day.
Okay. I can 100% agree with that. And I know there are a lot of times when I walk into the door, I just got to take a deep breath and all right, let's make it happen. So I definitely agree with that. Would you say that the old way of teaching is gone due to the rise in mental health when it pertains to students?
Yes, I would say that because, as you all know, the big thing now is social and emotional learning. If the child is not there emotionally, then the child is not learning. So you first have to reach that child emotionally to be able to even get them to learn. If you have a child that's sitting in a classroom worried about their mother being beat at home, or if the lights are on when they get home, or if they're going to be able to eat when they get home, or if they have to walk through a neighborhood and make sure that they are safe because there's gun violence within their neighborhood, you got to take care of that trauma first before the child can learn anything that you're trying to teach them. So you got to address that emotional piece first before they can learn.
Mm. Yeah, I just, I think about how I came up as a student in education, and just thinking about how it was like, shut up. Like, you do
Mm-hmm.
what I say. It don't matter what you was going through. And I know a lot of us educators now were people who came up under that practice. And so a lot of us take that practice into the classroom. And so it's one of those things where I just think to myself, like, does that even work anymore with this level of student at this point? Because these students, and I tell students this a lot, you guys deal with a lot more traumas than I specifically had to deal with. And I mean, even all the way down to bullying, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
bullying is like in your face, because it's gone from face to face to being social media.
Social media.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had to sit a few kids down and let them know, like, social media bullying is not anything to play with, because if you can put a post up about a kid, and that is shared with thousands and millions of people who have no idea who this kid is, who are now ridiculing that particular kid, and they have to go to school and deal with that particular trauma. And so I just think it's really interesting, or I just really question, you know, should we continue to move forward in that train of thinking of how we teach, that drill sergeant, you do what I do, or you do what I say, you speak blah blah, I mean, I speak, you don't speak, you just a child.
Well, that goes back to what Quan said a little bit earlier. Like, you have to build that relationship with that child. Just because you're saying "do as I say," that child may not respond to that, and your classroom is not going to run smoothly because they're like, "Okay, you're telling me this, but you really don't understand what I'm going through. So I'm not going to listen to you, and I'm not going to show up for you inside of your classroom because you're not trying to get to know me and what my problems are." Like he said, unpacking the backpack. They don't know what they have inside of that backpack. They don't know what they dealt with before they came inside of that classroom. And they're not trying to understand. They just want them to do what they want them to do inside of their classroom.
So I'll give you an example, Julian. When I first started teaching, I was teaching at an urban school, and they had this kid was in high school, and he just came every day and went to sleep. And I was like, "You starting to piss me off, bro. Like, I know this, music class, band class, whatever, but you pissing me off. Wake the hell up." And it was one day I was like, "Man, let me ask him. Like, he must have a part-time job or something like that." So I asked him. I say, "Look, bro, like, why you go to sleep in my class?" I say, "I paid all this money for this degree. You gonna get some of this theory." And he said, "Look here, Mr. Mitchell. I don't mean no disrespect." He said, "My mother is a prostitute." He said, "I have 5 siblings. I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, bathe all my siblings, catch the bus to go to the other side of town to my auntie house, cook my siblings breakfast, dress them, put them on the bus. Then I eat, I try to eat, then I fix myself, and then I come to school." He says, "I've been up since 4. School started at, I believe at that time was like 8:30. He was already up and did possibly more than what most people did in their day. So I say, look, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna let you sleep 45 minutes. Once you wake up, I'm gonna let you get some water. I even bought him a toothpaste and toothbrush that I slid to him. That he went in my office, he grabbed it, went to the restroom, brushed his teeth, he refreshed himself. He did the work. He passed with an A. I'm blessed to say the young man is in college now. But like, if what would have happened if it was another teacher who was like, "Now you gonna get up and now I'm gonna send you to the front office," and he's already dealing with something that's bad. It's situations like that this is why you're called to be a teacher. And if you're not trying to do those specific things, then you're in the wrong profession, because you're dealing you our job as teachers, yes, we're educators, but honestly, we're in the service business though, and we have to consider that as well.
Man, that's a hell of a story too, brother. I mean, I think we all had those though. I definitely have, not to that extreme, but yeah, man, that's a hell of a story. Good job on being able to handle that. So great teacher, brother. You're a great teacher. All right. Let's keep it moving, man. Welcome everybody to Secondary Sessions. What? Oh, dang. I was about to say we had unfiltered. No, we don't have unfiltered. As soon as you come in, man, go ahead and smash that like button. Let's get these likes up, man. I appreciate my brother Charles in the comments, man. And I know a lot of people are watching March right now. I want to go ahead and put that plug in. I know a lot of people are watching March right now. And supporting not just necessarily Prairie View A&M University, but also just supporting band being on a national network. So I'm definitely looking at it. I got it on my screen over here. I can't hear it though. I got it on DVR, so I'm gonna go back and watch it. But no, I appreciate everybody checking it out, but also sticking with us. So once again, make sure you smash that like button, and then also please make sure you subscribe to the network and turn on notifications. All right, let's move on to the next topic. This is going to be specifically band centered. So, as you know, band is a very, very disciplined, I guess you want to say, sport. I call it a sport, which requires a lot of rigorous practice and attention to detail. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about the old way of teaching. There's also an old way of band directing that is 100% militant. So the question is, with the amount of discipline it takes to be in band, should we have mental health counselors on staff? With the amount of discipline it takes to be in band, should we have mental health counselors on staff? Quan, you got it.
I'm going to say yes, but I'm not going to say that it's all because of the discipline. It's just everybody has trauma. Like everybody has trauma of some sort. So like when you come into a situation, and for example, when you think about the size of like FAMU pre-Robert Champion, somebody real talk had a mental health issue with that type of band. Also, some of that may be culture shock, like for what it is. I don't think that it's so much the discipline, but you maintain the standard. But every band director that I've known and that I've, marched under and even worked for had a form of compassion at some point. So you have to have balance, because at the end of the day, we still have a job to get done. Um, but you must have a sense of compassion and empathy because those are kids. And we have to honestly consider that as a director, man, those are kids. So some of that they've never experienced before. Like, I think, Julian, you are truly blessed transitioning from Willow Ridge to Norfolk because, Prof. Thornton, he ran y'all Real Talk like a college band. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't so much of a culture shock. And your mindset was like, I know where I'm transitioning to, right? But it wasn't about discipline. It wasn't about the rigor of the work or the technicality of playing. But if something that you've endeavored through in your life caused a trigger, you should be able to have or go to the assistant director of bands and say, look, how that dude talking to me, bro, like, he ain't gonna be able to do it because I may have father wounds or mother wounds that he's triggering me, and I'm telling you what I'm gonna do. Like, that's the difference. And I do think, honestly, some of the older way would have been like, hey, that's just crabbing. But you can't deal with everybody like that because now you have school shootings and you know what I'm saying? Like, some in there are untold stories where people did bring pistols to band practice because they felt like they were scared. We don't want to talk about those, but some of those rituals, quote unquote, that was back in the day, some of them just overall was asinine because it didn't make you a better player. It was just a part of the culture at that time. So I think band directors now are more aware. I do think we need mental health counselors, not just due to the discipline, but just overall, because in my opinion, I think social media is causing trauma. Think about how desensitized we are when it comes to like, for me, seeing black men being killed by officers. Like, with that George
I
Floyd
agree.
situation really messed me up. Like, when that man called out for his mama, I knew he was about to die. You know what I'm saying? So those are the things that we're dealing with. We're dealing with desensitized young students who are angry at a lot of stuff, but want to feel that family environment in your program. You have to have empathy, and you need professional trained people like Miss Brown to be like, say, baby, come here, let's go take this walk. How can we fix that? Even if I've seen the people they do this like that, touching their face to calm and stuff, whatever the technique. Even I see some band directors, they do yoga now. Whatever we need to do to make sure that we treat the child holistically to heal those childhood traumas, that's what we need to do.
Let me quickly say before Mrs. Brown goes, I have yet to watch the George Floyd video. Never
Yeah,
watched it because I couldn't bring myself to watch it. So yeah, that was the first thing. And then you brought out some real New Orleans when you was like, "Hey baby, come in." I don't know why I just imagine some big bosom lady coming in and putting their head all up in the cleavage. Come on, baby. Yeah, my bad.
Oh,
That's all I saw, man. All right, Mrs. Brown, go ahead.
I'm gonna say yes, Julian, because you're bringing a lot of different personalities together. You're bringing a lot of different cultures together, um, and everyone might not do the same thing. They may not be used to the way the band director handles band practice. They may not be used to having to juggle now band, academics, and social life. And like Quan said, like social media, like I can just think back to when I first got introduced to the Marching Storm, and I'm like, the camera's always in these girls' face. They got to make sure that their hair is on point. People are judging them when they are on the camera. What if they have trauma behind that? What if they're like, I'm not good enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm looking at the camera and I see that I gained some weight and I don't want to be on social media. So you have to take all those things that come into place with the band and with a large band, as you and Quan said, like that's a lot of people to deal um, with their mental health. Like you can have somebody within the band that you may not know has a mental health issue, and you say one thing, and you're like, okay, he just tore down the whole band room, or he just decided he was going to come back and do something very dangerous to the band director because of the way he spoke to him, not knowing that he has some mental health issues. So I do agree that mental health is important to have within the band world. I can't speak on the band world. I was in majorette in high school, but after that, I did not do anything on a college level. So I can't speak to your rituals that you do within the band.
I mean, you a major, you can still speak on it, because you got some experience. I mean, that still counts.
That was on a high school level. I mean, it wasn't that much. I mean, yes, we had certain things that we had to do in the summertime. We had to do certain things to become a part of the majorette. And yes, there is some trauma that may have been caused, like when trying out. I can speak to that. Like you had girls who were crying, who thought they weren't good enough. I'm too fat. I'm not going to be able to fit the uniform. That's why they didn't pick me. You also have to think about the whole situation, how girls were judged with, oh, I'm light skinned, she's dark skinned. I'm not going to be a part of this because all the girls that's on the squad is light skinned. So that's a part of trauma and mental health too. You look at yourself and you're like, oh, I'm not good enough. Why am I not good enough to be a part of that? So yeah, I do think that mental health is a big part of the band world. That if it's not, it needs to be a part of the band world.
Yeah, and I'm just sitting here thinking, like I think about everything that you guys said, but I also think it has to be a two-way street, right? Because going back to the example that Quan gave, the student actually made the decision to come inside and actually have the conversation with somebody, right? As a band director, if you moving, and I'm just using this as example because it's on the screen. If you're moving 300 people, and let's say you go off on somebody or because they didn't hit the line right or whatever, or they're not playing a note right, at that moment you're just a director trying to make sure that all these 300 people are doing the right thing and moving the right way. It's not a personal attack against a kid, whereas that kid, because they may be dealing with that trauma, may feel that way, right? And I really don't, even just as a director, I know that I have spoken to students individually, but I know as a director, I'm also not going to go to every kid and just be like, hey, are you good? Did I hurt your feelings? Did I say that right? But there are, if I get the time to be able to do it, because there's so many things on your plate, especially, in Quan's situation, or even the situation that I was in at one time, being the only band director. You can't talk to every kid, so sometimes that kid has to be strong enough to just come in and say, hey, I didn't like X, Y, and Z. Like I've had students who've come to have that conversation with me too.
So one thing I want to touch on, like I know that you guys are concerned about having band practice and making sure everything's set to go for game day, or may it be for a basketball game. I charge every band director to have one day out of the week where it's geared towards mental health, because you need to have one day. I'm not saying it needs to be the full day, but at least an hour to just check in with your students to see where they are. May it be like Quan said, bands are now doing yoga, or have someone to come in and talk about mental health, or have stations set up where they're getting to do things to let out their frustration. Because as I said, now everything is tied towards social and emotional learning, and it doesn't only need to be on, inside of middle school, high school, elementary school. It needs to be on the college level too as well, because like Quan said, a lot of these people have dealt with the George Floyd and all the different things that we had to deal with in 2020 and 2021. So we need to address those things, because we don't know what our students are feeling on the inside. They just see it and then we just think, okay, we're gonna move on to the next thing that happens, and then we'll talk about that, and then we'll move on to the next, instead of unpacking these things and taking care of our mental health.
Yeah, we never at Norfolk. I know we never did that. I distinctly remember, and this is something that I 100% took really a lot of appreciation for. It was one day during practice. I think it was Mr. Adams, came in the band room and he just said, "Everybody, close your eyes." And he turned off the lights. He was like, "Just close your eyes." And a lot of us either just closed our eyes or we just kind of laid in our chairs or whatever. And then he had Jose Palmier. I know y'all know him, but he's a heck of a guitar player. But he came in and he started playing his little guitar stuff on it, and it just took us to another place that was really calming and relaxing for us. And that got us prepared to be able to take on the rest of the rehearsal that we had. So I think those things are important. I 100% agree with you that days and things like that are definitely important for the student on the university level, because I just remember being a student. You remember what it's like being a student. Quan, you remember what it's like being a student. We deal with a lot. And I'm not even just talking about, and I'm not specifically saying that one is, better than the other, but being a student like me who went to a school, or even like Quan who went to a school that was not in your home city or your home state, being away from home, that can be a trigger. That can be a trauma for us, because we're learning how to survive and cope without things that are familiar to us being around. And so that within itself was a struggle. So I think that's definitely necessary for university programs to have, or all programs to have. So I 100% agree with that and feel that that's necessary to have.
No, what was a struggle was when they said they were serving gumbo and they had tomatoes in it. That was a struggle.
Wait, you said it had what in it?
It had tomatoes in it. I said, that ain't no damn gumbo. And I flipped it over. I was homesick. But no, I think everybody will agree, if you're a transfer student, and think about like now, like some of the students that transfer internationally. Like I have one student, he's Bahamian. Like I try to make him feel welcome, because the truth is your band family, that's your family for 4 years or however long you're there. But I think great band directors know when to turn it on and off. Great band directors do. I think you can revere the seat and have the standard to where it's like, that's the band director. So it's like, don't cross that personal line. But that band director also has empathy. I'm pretty sure Dr. Zachary and all of these great band directors, Dr. Taylor at Southern, Dr. Little, they're approachable though. And I think that's what separates them, because for some of them, you are the only father figure that they may have ever had. So, I mean, think about it, Julian. Like Prof. Thornton, you said you pledged Alpha because of this man. Same thing for me for Prof. Edwards. That type of approachability and acceptance, for him accepting you for who you are. Because the truth is, when you have trauma, you still that little boy, little girl that's looking for that love and attention and healing. So that's why it's important for educators to be mindful of, honestly, the seeds they're planting in these kids. So it's a calling, bro. And this is truly a calling. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, 100%. And I definitely will piggyback off of what you said. When I was in school, Mr. Zachary at the time, he wasn't Dr. Zachary, he was Mr. Zachary. But Mr. Zachary was definitely the person I actually talked to like all the time. Like that's why, we had become so close, and we were blessed to work together at Prairie View together. Because that's who I only person I could talk to. He was my advisor at the time, and I was his work study student. So whenever I had an issue, I would go up there and I would just chop it up with him, and he keep it 100. So we definitely as directors are or should be those people. So we should, as directors, provide those things for those students. Good, cool, 100%. All right, let's keep it moving. Hey man, we getting through these pretty quick. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad. Well, it's probably because we ain't got all the panel here. I mean, Derek in the comments, he phony though. All right, man. If you just tuned in, welcome everybody to Secondary Sessions. As you come in, go ahead and smash that like button. All right, go ahead and click them likes and let's get these likes up. All right. Also, please make sure that you subscribe to the network and turn on notifications. Are you driving? You shouldn't be texting and driving. See, this builds trauma. You shouldn't be texting and driving. Anyway, I'm gonna put the link in the I always say description. I'm gonna put the link in the chat for anybody who's listening. If you guys want to hop on with us and have the conversation with us on any of the topics that we have discussed, or just mental health in your music or your education program. So here we go. Here's the last topic. We kind of already touched on this, but I want to make sure that we specifically talk about this. Have we taken, well, let me kind of set it up. I know that educators within themselves, just all educators, deal with a lot. But I also know that band directors, coaches, we take on a whole lot more because we're moving bigger groups and bigger bodies of students. We have them a lot more on personal levels, whether it's band trips or things of that nature. I even, just thinking about all the band trips that I've taken, the things that have happened on band trips that have created trauma, And so the question is, I mean, it's true. I mean, let's keep it real. So the question is, have we taken adequate steps to provide mental health help for music educators and or band directors? Have we taken adequate steps to provide mental health help for music educators and or band directors? Mrs. Brown.
So I can't speak for band directors. I can speak for educators. Um, I'm going to go back because this is kind of tying to the first question that we had tonight about resources for teachers and other people within the education setting. Yes, there are resources out there. However, we are not always leery to use them because of what we said earlier, it ties to our jobs. So we don't want anybody judging us when we do use those resources because, like I said, it's tied to our jobs. But if you have health insurance, you are able to go outside of your job and find a therapist outside of your job if you feel more comfortable with that. But we all know there is a center on every campus that has therapists that students can go talk to and professors. And on a public school setting, there are people who are tied to the school that you can go to through your job for free. But a lot of people don't use those services because it goes back to what I said in the beginning. They don't want it tied to their job.
Let me ask this question before Quan goes. And I don't know the rules or regulations on this, but can that legally happen? Like legally, if a person does go and seek help through their school and or district, and can they legally report certain things that can allow you to lose your job?
So, how can I put this? We all know that certain people within the school setting is privy to information, correct? So, if certain people are privy to information, do you think that those people who have that information are not going to watch that person a little bit closer? Do you think that they're not going to have documentation to say, hey, I think that this person needs to take a leave of absence? And if it's somebody that's already on, let's be honest, the person that's in charge shit list, they are going to be watching them a little bit closer and trying to see how they can get rid of that person. So a lot of people tie that.
Agree.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. Yeah, I got my soundboard today. So I hooked the soundboard up for secondary sessions. All right. One, you got it.
No. I mean, So let's just be consistent. So if it's not enough mental health for educators and we're a part of that, I'm going to add something else. Music educators and fine, oh, goddamn fly, music educators and fine arts people, we're always and constantly fighting for our seat at the table, regardless. I don't care what district, I don't care what state, I don't care what city, what county, what parish. You're fighting for your position at the table. We've incurred hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, some of us, for a craft that we love with our entire being, but yet and still, we're always the one that have to shuck and jive and low key be the stepchild in the corner. So when company come, hey, do that dance for them. Like that's us. So we already feel devalued. We already are fighting for resources in certain areas and districts to ensure that our programs are adequate, or we could just merely compete with the bare minimum against our counterparts that may be affluent. We always fighting. So that's something else. Our work hours in office is just as long or as long as other coaches. And other coaches, the difference is what? They may have a staff. Julian, you say you were a band director by yourself. So was I. When I was a middle school band director, initially in an urban district, it was me by myself. Not to add, how many times your classes be large and your class is a dumping ground? Like mentally, you're saying, so where do I matter? I only matter when it's time to dance, to be a jigaboo. Like that's like that feeling of, well, I'm not an educator either. You know what I'm saying? If I put 4 over 4 on the board and drew or compose a great piece or a great symphony, doesn't that count for something? But it doesn't matter because it's not about mathematics and arithmetic, and it's the data is not the same that these testing contents are looked at. Like that's a problem. We deal with that on a daily basis. On top of, because we're different creators. Oh, I'm sorry, because we're different, because we're creators. When you are a creator and people, the powers that be, tell you that you can't create or you must create a certain way, that also deals with you mentally, because we know what we're called to be. Could you imagine if a cook or a chef was only told you can only use these ingredients or you could only use these pots? Yes, he's going to do it over time, but he's not limited and he's handcuffed in certain predicaments that is going to stop his or stunt his growth as a professional. We deal with that every day. So we deal with all of that, bro. So yes, it's so much that we deal with that people don't see. On top of going pick up kids, on top of going buy them groceries, on top of unpacking their stuff, and we're empathizing because we may have went through the same thing. How many times have you bought lunch or dinner or food for your students because we're talking, if you bring them home, they ain't gonna have nothing to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're literally on the phone with the parent, Mr. Mitchell, man, our lights off, and you're literally dialing 211 trying to get them assistance because they can't come to band practice and they're like your children. So we deal with that, man. So
another thing I want to touch on, being that my husband is a band director, you also are on the chopping board. You have to worry about if your program is even going to be ranked the next year, because fine arts is always the first thing that gets put on the chopping board. So that's another stressor, and might as well say trauma, because you're worried about, am I going to be able to feed my family next year if I don't meet my numbers, or if my band doesn't perform well, am I going to get let go? Is my band program even going to be running next year? So that's another thing that you all have to worry about.
So in essence, what is being said is, in a nutshell, don't nobody care about the band director. the band director's minds and thoughts and mental processes just don't even matter. And I mean, in all honesty, I mean, it can become that way, and I've seen it way too many times. Um, there are many times where I have sat back and I've said to myself, I went to school just like that math teacher. You know what I'm saying? But yet I feel less than that math teacher. Like what I went to school for is not as important as that math teacher. Um, and so that has caused trauma. Even even as the head band director putting together the UIL show, trying to pick your pieces, trying to make sure that this thinking about whether this kid can actually read this piece, or Lil Johnny, like you said, Lil Johnny can't even eat at home, but we worried about playing Tritico or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Or putting together the marching show and then trying to plot drill in your brain and thinking about drill and how you gonna put together the drill, and you're up all night and you think about that, what kid is gonna make it, or a kid comes to tell you, Mr. Luke or Mr. Mitchell, man, man, my mama say I can't come because I got X, Y, and Z, and now you trying to figure out how to fill that hole or fill that spot or how to cover that spot or rewrite the drill. I mean, it is a lot that a band director deals with. And I'm going to say personally, I don't think that there is adequate help or adequate steps to provide mental health specifically for music educators and or band directors, because I think that it's only because a lot of people, unless you are in that seat, unless you are a relative of said band director, like a wife or something, you really don't know what band directors deal with. Because in most cases, the band director is doing what? Dealing with the band. So that band director is not always walking that hallway. I got one of the teachers on my campus was like, "Hey, I don't ever see you on this side of the building." I was like, "I know, because I'm always in the band room with band kids. Like, I mean, that's all we can do. That's all. When do we have time to walk the building? Like, we're always planning something. We're always doing something." So yeah, I had an administrator who told me 3 years ago, "Mr. Luke, you got to really come out of that band room and walk this campus." I looked at him and said, when am I supposed to do that? I'm the only director here, which means that I'm dealing not only with the grades of these students, I'm dealing with drill, I'm writing the music, I'm dealing with these random kids that you didn't just threw in this class and called a music theory class, and then you're still expecting me to maintain a specific standard, especially when you come into my class and you're evaluating me, because you don't ever really come into my band class. You come into that music theory class where you dumped a bunch of kids, but you expect for me to still follow a curriculum, and they supposed to learn, but them kids didn't want to be in there in the first place. You know what I'm saying? So it's so many different things that directors deal with and music educators deal with, and so many different traumas outside of our own traumas. And I just personally believe that we need, spaces and things like that to where we can go, even if it is just like that one counselor on that campus. One of the things that I did appreciate that our counselors on our campus this year said to us was exactly what you said at the beginning, Mrs. Brown. So weird. I'm so used to calling you Tim. Anyway, but what you said at the beginning was, you're not specifically there just for the students. And that's what they said to us when we came in. And, and they, as counselors, they said they realize different triggers. If a teacher walks by them and they say, "How you doing today?" and you say, I'm all right, then that's a trigger for them. They're like, "All right, well, we need to go talk." So I appreciate our counselors for that. Funny thing is, I don't walk the hallways enough to go see a counselor. So, I don't know, man. It's so many different things, man. Quan, you got it.
So the crazy thing about that is, and I can't speak for any other state, but I know for Texas, counselors are over testing. So it's like some of them can't even do their job because they focus on testing. And not being ugly, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Brown, like, where did y'all get y'all testing coordinator certification? Because I thought y'all went to school to help kids, but y'all can't even do your job because you focusing on whatever that state mandated standardized test is, because you're the testing coordinator. How'd that go? That's why I keep saying school has turned into big business, and where they can literally, if they don't have to hire two people, they're gonna bleed you for that one. If they can save one salary there, they're gonna kind of give you a stipend, real talk, to shut you up. But now, instead of working an 8 hour day, now you're working a 14 hour day just for an extra what, $200 on your check.
Mhm. So to answer your question, yes, we are in charge of testing, and I think they kind of tied us into that because of the PSAT. We're in charge of the PSAT. So they're like, okay, they can do PSAT. They can make sure testing is done for the athletes. They can make sure all these other things are done. And that kind of falls under the academic umbrella for school counselors. So that's how they're able to tie us in to be able to deal with testing because it falls under academics.
And if y'all mess up testing, you lose your job. That's trauma.
I mean, but that first of all, I
But
agree with
wait,
that. But
I want to speak on that because that is a trigger for me, and you do know that that's a trigger for me because I was once in a position of testing, and testing it was like 600 students. I was testing 600 students that day, and some paperwork was missing from that center where I had a certain amount of kids. And then I went back one day and I was like, oh my God, the test paper is here. What do I do now? Because the testing has already been sent off. So like you said, trauma does come with that. And I don't feel like we should be in charge of testing for the school. Yes, I do feel like we should be in charge for PSAT and ACT and ASVAB and all that stuff because that is our job. But when it comes to coordinating the state testing, I don't think we should be in charge of that because that's even more pressure on us having to deal with trauma with kids. And then it's like, well, what am I doing when I'm doing this testing? Am I going to be the counselor or am I going to be the coordinator? If a student goes off inside the classroom, am I going to be worried about, okay, do I have the pencils or the test booklet set up? Or am I going to go help this student who's going off inside the classroom causing chaos for other students who are testing? So it's like, we're juggling so many different things as you are too as band directors. Counselors get a bad rep. They think that we just sit inside of office all day and we don't do anything, and that's not the case. We may be on the phone with DCF. We may be dealing with a student who may be removed from their home. It's so much going on in a day that people don't even know that we deal with because they're inside of the classroom teaching, but they're not inside of our office or in the hallway seeing the things that we're doing behind the scene. So I just want to give a big shout out to all my counselors out there who are doing their job and going over and beyond the things that we should be doing.
Master schedule. Like
Correct.
all of that. So yeah, I feel you. I feel you.
So Quan, the first thing I want to say to you is I really hope you got that fly, bro, because you was battling that thing, man.
Hey, it's a gnat, bro. Like it's a pregnant gnat, and like he wants to be on Talk That Talk. He or she, wants to be on Talk That Talk. So damn bad, and it just keeps coming. And I'm trying to be like calm with it, but it's like, God damn, it's like I like, whoo, God damn. Trigger.
And then trauma, right? And then the second thing was one, yes, that is a lot of trauma. That is a lot of things that counselors have to be put in the way of. For a teacher, that's the same thing. It is not as bad, but it's definitely a trigger for me when testing comes around. For the last, I didn't test the last 3 years, but prior to, I was testing like every year as a band director. And it's nerve wracking for me. It's trauma for me because based on the irregularity and how it's dealt with, that's your certification on the line, right? Like that. And then it's like, for me, I never could understand this. Maybe while I got you right here, you can answer this question for me. How is it that it's like a 10-minute training, and then they be like, all right, go home and read the book, and then put all of that on your certification, or put your certification on the line with all of that information. And I'm like, how does that make sense? Like, I went through all of this to get my certification, and you mean to tell me a 10-minute training and a 4-hour test can be lost that quick? Like, we got it. I just completely disagree. I'll be in there struggling when I'm in there testing.
So when that happens, Julian, what you need to do is, because it's the responsibility of the coordinator, if you don't feel comfortable with being a test proctor, then you need to go to the coordinator and say, hey, I only got this training and you're expecting me to go in here and do this. And then the teacher, if there is someone else that is able to proctor that test, they need to go in there if you don't feel comfortable. I always tell my practice, if you don't feel comfortable, you need to let me know. Some people don't feel comfortable with reading the instructions out loud. They're like, what if I go in here and I don't say everything that I need to say that's inside of this booklet? Am I going to be fired for that? If I misspell something on the board with the time and date that I'm supposed to be putting on the board for the students so that I'm timing this test right, am I going to lose my job for that? If a cell phone goes off inside of the classroom and that messes up the classroom setting for that test for that day, am I going to be fired for that? It's so many things that comes into place with testing that teachers are worried about when it's time for the school to take their standardized tests. So if you don't feel comfortable, I suggest that you go to your coordinator and make them go over the information with you for a second time and a third time and a fourth time until you feel comfortable.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I never received that information as far as, hey, if you don't feel comfortable X, Y, and Z. It's always been, all right, y'all go read the booklet and be right and be ready. But I mean, I've done it
Here's
a
the
number
thing:
of
they
years to where
should
I've
feel
built a
comfortable.
tolerance for it.
They should feel comfortable with you coming to them, because that's not just on you, that's on the coordinator as well. Because if something does happen, it's going to come back to the coordinator. Well, did you prepare this proctor for the test? So they should feel comfortable and should feel honored for you even coming to them to ask for help, because it falls back on them. If you don't do well, they don't do well. If the students don't do well, I mean, what do they expect? Knock on that door and say, hey, I don't understand what's going on with this booklet that you just gave me. Can we sit down and can I highlight what I need to highlight so that I'm prepared for the test to proctor?
Yeah,
And if they tell you no, it's always someone under them that, they work together with to get that help, or go to a senior teacher and, talk to them.
Because they don't want
I,
them testing irregularities.
Oh
No,
no,
no.
no, they don't. But I could tell you now, now that it's been some years, because this is actually year 12. I was actually clocking it. I didn't know I was in this thing for 12 years. But this is year 12. So, I'm cool now. But I remember the first couple of times I was like, bruh, you tripping. But then it was a situation like, if you got the band director test, and 9 times out of 10, you don't have the bodies to, to have them proctor in the test. So, I knew it was a situation where at that point I just kind of had to do it because it wasn't nobody else. It was you, because usually they'll either be like, all right, you just stay in your room and whatever kids ain't testing that's in band, you receive them, or they put me as a monitor. So that was either one, two things. But when they put me in that testing room, I was like, I was sweating, but it was all good. I handled it now. Absolutely, I was in that, like, I was struggling. I was shaking, reading the paper and everything. So, but no, I'm good now.
So that either mean you had low, fully certified teachers. Number one, two, they quote unquote said, well, you know what, you could control the environment, and they felt that somebody else couldn't. Either one of the two, bro. And I hate testing because all I do for those 7 hours is think of drill numbers, and I march up and down that aisle. That's what get me through. Do that, bro.
I did it. I already did it. I be doing everything, man. I be sitting up there at market time. Sometimes I be going
Yeah.
up and down. I done did it all, bro.
Then you try to
But
get
no,
them.
you're absolutely right though. It wasn't enough certified teachers on that campus, bro. And typically either that or it just randomly teachers will be like, well, I'm sick that day, so I can't come in. And I'll be like, man, y'all trash, man. Y'all just go
I
find
had
a way to
one
not
teacher.
come in.
I had one teacher come to me. It was an hour before the test was supposed to start, and she told me, "Well, my last name was Walker then. Miss Walker, I don't have my reading classes today. I don't think that I'm going to be able to proctor the test today." And I'm like, "Oh my God, what am I going to do?" And you know who I went and got? The band director from out of his room to get him to proctor the test. So you
Stop
guys
doing these
do.
band directors like that. Stop.
He helped me. He don't know how much he helped me that day because I had no one else to proctor the test.
But see that's the thing though. Like in most cases, and this is not necessarily to you, but in most cases, the band directors really are willing to do a lot of things
Hmm.
for people. Not, just I don't know why that is. Like,
We
anybody
know
on
about
any campus
teamwork.
I've ever been on, this it's always like, hey, Mr. Luke, can you do this? Or Mr. Luke, you know how to do this? I'm like, man, I got you, man. Don't worry about it.
Hmm.
It's just I don't know what it is. It just people know that they can just count on the director to be able to handle those things, or be there in case something happens.
What we know about teamwork. Like we understand that what makes something function well is willing vessels that move,
I
even your
agree.
different body parts, we move the same way. And we know that. And we know honestly, that's why honestly a lot of band directors that transition to the administrative position are really good.
Hmm. Yeah, they
Because
are.
we understand you got to cultivate the people. And I even though you have 16 different jobs, but I need you to move like this. That's all.
All right. Man, this was a good one, man. We didn't have any guests come in. Usually Chuck will come in, but I'm pretty sure he busy today. But it's all good, man. It's definitely been a much needed conversation, and so I felt like we needed to go ahead and have it. And then we're definitely going to actually continue this conversation also on Talk That Talk, because I think that not only on the secondary level, but we need to have this conversation and really get and dive into the university level and aspect about that too. So we're definitely going to continue this conversation on Talk That Talk. I think this conversation was necessary for people to have. If you are just coming in the room or you just tuning in, you still have time to go ahead and smash the like button as well as subscribe to the network. Or if you're going to go back and listen to it, you can click the like button as well as you are viewing it on playback. Before we get out of here, though, I do want to actually thank Mrs. Brown for coming through. This was definitely much appreciated. It's always, always, always good to have. Let me go ahead and do this right. Oh,
I agree.
not that one. There we go. It's always good to be able to have a voice that is definitely rooted in one of the things that we're talking about. So having a counselor here, and a counselor and educator as well, is definitely necessary for all of the feedback that we have. So, without further ado, Mrs. Brown, do you have any final thoughts, any final comments?
I'm just gonna go back to what I said earlier. I charge every band director to take some time out for their students with mental health. I'm not saying take the whole practice to dedicate towards mental health, but at least take 2 to 3 hours to do that for your students. You'll be surprised how many students will open up to you. You might be surprised what you find out during that time and how you can help your students if you do that within your band program. Thank you, Julian, for having me. Thank you, Quan, for allowing me to join your podcast tonight. I hope to hear more about mental health on Talk That Talk when you guys have your next podcast.
Oh, and by the way, go ahead and plug yourself while you're sitting right here. Go ahead and plug yourself. You got the spotlight.
Tomorrow night, if you are free, please join me and Julian on my live on Instagram on Mildred's Catering and More. As I said, mental health is very big in my life, and that is one of the things that I do to help my mental health. We'll be talking about why I started Mildred's Catering More and how it's tied to mental health tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Please join in. We'll be going live at 8 o'clock on Instagram. Once again, my catering business is Mildred's Catering More. You can also visit me at www.mildredscateringmore.com. And if you would like to inquire about anything, I can be reached at www.mildredscateringmore@gmail.com. Thank you, Julian.
Anytime. You know, like I always say, you know, first of all, your family anyway. So, you know,
Do
but
y'all
what I
deliver?
just
Y'all deliver?
No, we do not deliver. I'm in Connecticut, Quan.
Damn it.
But go ahead and check my food out. I have recipes up there that you can, go home and try to doctor up yourself in the kitchen.
Got you.
what I did also was I went ahead and put the link to her page in the chat. So if you're interested, you want to look up some of those recipes, you want to look up her whole program, everything that she has going, go ahead and click that link, mildredscateringandmore.com. It is in the chat. All right. And then join her let's join us tomorrow at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. So I got to make sure I put that out there. Yeah, Quan, hey man, if you look at her Instagram, dog, that Instagram be off the chain, be mouth watering, bro.
I'm looking at
try
it
to
now.
stay off of it because I'll be hungry. She put
Make
up a
sure
little
you
mac
check
and
it out
cheese joint.
tonight is Sweet Tooth Monday.
Do you see that brunch? Ooh.
Yeah,
I'm a sucker
it'd
for
be
some
like
grits
that.
and eggs, boy.
It'd be like that. All right. Quan, go ahead and final thoughts.
Hey, go check out our page. She got some stuffed bell peppers that I'm about to go try. I'm gonna say it tonight, but I'm also saying Wednesday. First and foremost, I'd like to say congratulations to my students. They had a drumline battle in Dallas, Texas last weekend that was called the Clash of the Drumlines. I'm gonna figure out the guy's name. His name is Brandon, and I'm gonna say I think it's called Drill Time Productions. And I must truly say it was
I know drill time. Yeah, I got you. Go ahead. My bad.
now he truly honestly, they put on a great drum contest, percussion contest. Shout out to all the schools that participated in it. I think the judges were fair in their adjudication process. Shout out to what is it, Bulldog Express, that overall won it. Hand was great. Yeah, that's from the north side.
I used to work at Forestbrook. That's why I'm asking. But yeah, go ahead.
Dang, you really good, bro.
Hey man, yeah. I told you I'd have been around, man. I'd have seen some things. But yeah, you got it.
But I do want to say what's the irony is shout out to St. Augustine and Mr. Ruffin out there. They actually battled Worthing. So it kind of like they was battling my school, and I was like, man, but that's the home team. But awesome job to everybody, the schools in Memphis and all over. Great job. And we look forward for next year's competition. And also it's audition season, y'all. I had the pleasure of meeting Professor Redding from Texas Southern today. Continue to push your kids to give them the opportunity to secure the bag, for college. So keep doing the great work and think about mental health.
By the way, Quan, you trash because you were supposed to hit me up when you came down here, but I ain't gonna say nothing, bro.
So guess what? We didn't have buses, so we carpooled. It was 6 cars.
You ain't put your bus request in early?
No, we did, but due to COVID stuff. So that's another thing. Let me say that I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair that athletics are still functioning properly and fine arts is not. If you're gonna be fair, be fair. But it's not cool that you receive things such as athletics can continue on in these facilities, and some of them are catching COVID, but we don't have the opportunity now. I mean, that's above my pay grade, but let's be fair though.
I mean, that is 100% correct, but you also know that athletics brings in more finances.
Yeah, but that don't make it right though. At
I didn't
one
say it
point,
made it right. I
yeah,
didn't say it made it right,
yeah.
but they
But
gonna go with the money first. So
at one point, we was 3/5 of a person. They ain't made it right either.
Can't argue with that. Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of stuff going on in Dallas at the time. I think it was the Drumline battle, and then they had the Parish Battle of the Bands as well. That had happened here, and then I think SOC had a parade for their I think it was their football team or basketball team.
Shout out to Will
so
Allen, bro.
yeah, shout out to Will. Funny thing
Will.
is, me and Will started in Houston ISD together. That's where I actually met him at when I was at Forestbrook. When I was at Forestbrook, this was 2014.
It had to be.
Yeah, 2014, 2015, somewhere around there. Yeah, but me and him started in HISD together. That's where I met him at orientation. And man, he's been doing great things, man. So nice. Shout out to him. Shout out to Iron Rochelle, who has come down here as well and worked at SOC with Will. So, much love to them. Much love to all of those who actually performed in the percussion battle. I think Justin was out there with DTX.
Yeah,
I think he was out there. Yeah.
Well, who was with Wilma Hutchinson?
Yeah, he was with Wilma. Yeah. So shout out to all of those folks, man, and shout out to everybody who's still participating and continuing to move this music and band and music education thing forward. All right. As far as my final thoughts, man, I appreciate everybody joining us, man. I see a lot of people who are coming in right now. I appreciate you guys coming in a little bit later, but it's okay, man, because you can go back and you can watch everything that we talked about, man. It was a really good conversation, so go back and watch that. Guard, oh, what's up, man? I'm trying to do my closeout. What you got?
I'm sorry, but I have to say, I'm gonna say it today and Wednesday. I finally met isn't it Brandon, right? From Smash Time?
Justin
from my bad. Justin from Smash Time. My bad. I don't know why I wanted to call him Brandon, but I finally met him in person, bro. Awesome guy, stand-up guy, bro. Like real talk.
Yeah, he was in Dallas because he was at the.
That's what I'm saying. I met him at the. Oh, he was. But I met him at the Battle Bank. He was stand-up guy, bro. Like real talk.
Yeah, man. One of these days, man, because you didn't chopped up with him. Mario done chopped up with him. I got to figure out a way to link up with him as well. I mean, it only makes it right, man. But but no, man, I appreciate everybody for joining us. To go back and listen to the show. Like I said, there's some jewels and some nuggets in this episode that's definitely necessary for you to take on. Also, please make sure that you guard your mental health, man. Please take care of yourself. Hey, let me ask you this question, Mr. Brown, before I get out here. Is CBD good to deal with mental health?
It is.
Okay, good.
But it should be prescribed.
Oh, dang. Tight.
Because it could mess with other things. May you be taking medication. So, yeah. Make sure you check with your doctor.
You mean like the male part?
Oh, no, I've been good. I'm straight. I'm good.
Yeah, I mean.
No, I'm good.
It has lasting effects, though? Hold on. Don't end yet, Julian. I got to get this information.
I'm just saying, make sure you check with the doctor if you're taking any, other medication or any other health issues that you may have before you, indulge.
Okay. Well, I've been smashing that CBD for a while, but I mean, I got off of it and my sleep is not been bad, so I'm gonna hit it tonight. But before then, my sleep has been really good. I'll be hitting them couple drops under my tongue, and I'll be out like a light bulb. All right, but man, please make sure, man, y'all guard y'all mental health. Take care of yourselves, man. Join us on Wednesday for Talk That Talk, and we will see you guys next Monday for another episode of Secondary Sessions, man. Appreciate y'all. We will see y'all next week. There we go.